Hi, this is BB Ukraine Analytics, the channel of top news, analytics and insights from Ukraine about Ukraine and about Russian-Ukraine war. My name is Bogdan Butkevych and I am Ukrainian journalist and vlogger, as you know.
Hi, and I'm Olena Vostrova, a Ukrainian vlogger. And today, as usual, we'll analyze the most important events of the week. So subscribe for our channel if you want to know the truth and insider information about Ukraine and Russia-Ukraine war.
And the first breaking news of the week is about the long arm of Ukraine.
The Ukraine-made long-range weapon successfully hit the target at a distance of 700 kilometers. This was officially announced by President Zelensky.
Ukraine gathered its long arm to strike at the strategic rear of the Russian army, and the Russian Federation has no effective countermeasures to this.
On August 29, the most massive attack on targets on the territory of Russia took place since the beginning of the war. There were explosions in Pskov at the Krysty military airfield and the Cherokhin military base due to an attack by kamikaze drones.
Four planes were confirmed damaged. Two of them burned to the ground. We are talking about Il-76 military transport aircraft. Each cost tens of millions of dollars. It takes years to build such a thing.
There is also information that another Tu-22 strategic bomber was also damaged at this airport that night.
Accordingly, the drone costing maximum $100,000 perfectly justified itself. The economy of war clearly works for Ukraine. The Ukrainian army has learned to get, maximum bang for its bucks, as it said. In the conditions of the enemy's multiple superiority in resources, the absence of strategic aviation and long-range missiles in Ukraine, the UAV program gives fantastic results.
In addition to the economic effect, these strikes on Pskov had a huge psychological effect. The war came to places very far from the front, where people did not expect it.
The appearances of Ukrainian drones caused panic and also legitimate questions about the inability of the Russian authorities to ensure the safety of their citizens. According to a video on social networks, the Russians began to ask questions, sort of, are we so successful at the front that now, Ukrainian drones are flying in the deep rear?
In addition, the 76th Airborne Division is based in Pskov. It committed war crimes in Bucha near Kiev in March 2022, when paratroopers of the particular military unit shot and tortured civilians. Therefore, this blow also carried the flavor of revenge against the executioners of the Ukrainian people.
Explosions that night were also heard in Bryansk, where Ukrainian drones carried out, several strikes on an important military microelectronics factory and administrative buildings.
The sounds of air defense work were heard in Moscow, Orel, Lipetsk and Kaluga regions, in Ryazan and other places.
Raids of Ukrainian drones continue every day. Every day in Moscow, the blanket plan is announced when all airports are closed. This brings millions of losses and seriously disrupts logistics throughout the country.
On August 27, the latest Ukrainian drones made of cardboard, which cannot be recognized by air defense systems, attacked the Kursk airfield, where 4 Su-30 fighters were damaged.
Russia essentially has nothing to answer to this drone war. It is almost impossible to completely cover such a gigantic area with air defense systems.
Plus, during the war, the Russian Federation already lost thousands of such systems. Accordingly to Ukrainian drones, will always find a loophole in Russia's defense system.
Plus, constant raids on Moscow forced the Russian army to withdraw a large number of systems there. According to, for example, Japanese media reports, the Russian army was forced to transfer S-300 systems even from the Kuril Islands. Imagine the shortage of air defense systems in the Russian Federation.
The Russians responded to the first attacks by Ukrainian drones by trying to disperse their planes to distant airfields. But they are also now within reach of Ukrainian drones.
Ukrainian authorities have announced that the development of several drone systems with a flight range of 1,000 kilometers is currently being completed, which turns the entire European part of Russia into a war theater.
A gigantic territory, a huge number of military facilities open up a wonderful prospect for the Ukrainian command, especially since no one helps the Russians in terms of air defense, as the West helps Ukraine.
Plus, Ukraine already has 1 and 5 years of experience in countering missile and drone attacks on its rear, whereas the Russian Federation has just now faced this at the moment of its greatest weakness.
And let us add that Oleksiy Danilov, the Secretary of National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, showed footage of the test of a new Ukrainian missile.
Here we most likely talk about the Neptune ground-launched cruise missile, which we talked about in our last video. The declared range is up to 350 kilometers. The effectiveness of this missile has already been proved by a strike against the Russian air defense system in western Crimea, when the latest C-400 system was destroyed.
Now, in fact, the entire Crimea is under the attack of Ukrainian missiles, which completely changes the situation.
The main thing now is the production capacity. That is how fast and massive the Ukrainian industry can produce these missiles. In fact, the entire occupied South and Crimea is now in the zone of strikes of these Ukrainian missiles. And their use does not require any permissions of the Western countries.
Of course, the Russian army is also preparing for autumn-winter campaign against Ukraine energy and logistics. Stockpiles of missiles are being accumulated. The factory of the production of Shahed Kamikadze drones has been completed. The Russians said they wanted to produce more than 1,000 of such drones this autumn. This is a serious threat that should be prepared for now.
However, it can be stated that Russia is rapidly losing its main advantage, the presence of a long arm. That is the ability to attack the Ukrainian rear without defense at full depths.
At the same time, Ukraine until recently did not have any means of defeat for such a long distance. Now the situation is changing rapidly. Ukraine has learned to effectively counter Russian missiles and Shaheds. The Russian Federation may not have enough strength against Ukrainian drones and missiles.
Plus, let's add to this the factor of the F-16 aircraft, which will definitely appear in a few months in Ukrainian air. And we will understand that strategically the Russian Federation is in a losing position.
Therefore, this autumn will be very hot. The Ukrainian army will try to break through and destroy the southern front of the Russians. There is already information about the breakthrough of the main line of the defense in the Tokmak area.
And the Russian army will try to hold the captured territory and advance in the north of Kharkiv region. But it is the long arm of the Ukrainian army that can become a game changer in the short term.
The second important news for today is about fighting corruption in our Ministry of Defense. After a series of scandals and pressure from civil society, Zelensky seems to have identified a new candidate for the position of Minister of Defense.
Currently, the President's office is considering the candidacy of the head of the State Property Fund of Ukraine, Rustem Umerov.
Reznikov's resignation and replacement of the minister may take place next week. And Reznikov is going to be sent as ambassador to Great Britain. In fact, he
If
performed...
Great Britain will let this.
Yes.
Okay, we will let
see.
it.
Yeah, we will see how it will let it. But in fact, he performed more of the role of the Minister of Foreign Affairs under the Ministry of Defense rather than the role of the manager of this institution.
Umerov is one of the leaders of the Crimean Tatar people, an advisor to Mustafa Dzhemilev. Before the work in parliament, he was a businessman, one of the managers of the LifeCell company, the founder of the investment company Astem and the charitable fund Astem Foundation. And he is one of the donors of the Ukrainian Emerging Leaders Training program at Stanford University in the USA.
Umerov took part in the negotiations regarding the exchange of prisoners and was part of the delegation that made attempts to negotiate with the Russian Federation.
Since working in business, he has influential connections in Turkey, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar. In the business environment, he has a reputation as a tough manager and experienced negotiator.
And actually, the head of the president's office, Andriy Yerak, involved Umerov in the negotiations as for the exchange of prisoners precisely because of his connections and qualities as a negotiator.
Since the first days of the war, Umerov has been conducting a closer track on the supply of heavy weapons from the other countries, which is not disclosed publicly.
And it should be noted also that with this appointment, Zelensky can totally close the attempts of anyone, including our allies, to talk about the surrender of Crimea.
A year ago, Umerov was appointed the head of the State Property Fund of Ukraine on the background of dismissal and, corruption investigation of his predecessor, Dmytro Senichenko.
Umerov came to the State Property Fund with his own team. And during a year of work at the fund, he demonstrated the ability to break old practices and corruption schemes.
Will he have the carte blanche for change inside the Ministry of Defense? Does the President's office have the political will to actually implement these changes? These are the, open questions.
Because as we have already mentioned, Umerov, as well as his predecessors, Taran and Reznikov, is promoted by the head of the President's office, Andriy Yerak, the de facto curator of the Ministry of Defense.
And the main challenge for any new minister within the Ministry of Defense is that the processes in this ministry are controlled by the people close to Yerak, such as the Deputy Minister Denis Sharapov, Yermak's former business partner.
After Umerov's appointment, the President will be protected for some time from corruption scandals and incompetent management decisions made by Reznikov, with promises that the new minister will solve old problems.
But there are fears that the new candidate will have no action programs, no understanding what to do. He will probably diligently try to do something and learn in a new position, but he will spend precious time not on making decisions, but on searching and studying problems unknown to him to this day.
While the front needs systematic solutions and permanent changes, not just changing names of ministers. And these changes can be made not by the military, but only by politicians, on whom legislative changes and resource provision depend, as well as the mobilization of people and the economy.
The Ministry of Defense is a key element of war organization, and weak organization is our main problem.
This appointment of an alternative minister from Yerak, without a strategy and action plan, will not change anything, unfortunately, and can only show the detachment from the war of the people in the President's office, the government and the parliament.
If this happens, President Zelensky and his entire government will show that for someone war is blood, pain, losses, hard and terrible work in which victory must be achieved, and for someone it is just scenery for photo shoots and opportunity to have access to the state resources, which are so necessary now to effectively fight the enemy.
Therefore, the importance of replacing the minister is not in the name of the new minister, but in whether Yermak's people will remain in the Ministry of Defense or not. Will the new minister be allowed to install his own team in this institution or not? Is there political will for changes, or is there a desire to conserve the situation and put out the fire around Reznikov?
We will see soon. After all, civil society in Ukraine continues to closely monitor the actions of the Ministry of Defense and will continue its pressure to clean this institution from corruption.
That's all for today. Please write your comments right under this video.
Please give us your like and subscribe for our channel. The channel, as you know, of top news, analytics and insights from Ukraine about Ukraine and about Russia-Ukraine's war.
Here we give you Ukrainian worldview for the world. So subscribe for our channel if you want to know what's really going on here in Ukraine from the inside.
See you.
Papa.